And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Mark watched the debate last night. Dr. Oz, McCormick, a couple of other candidates for PA Senate. We're also going to dive into it's trending right now on Elon Musk's Twitter. First time I've ever said that before. One of the things that's trending is who should pay for the first date. I'm sure that will be a riveting discussion between you and I. And last but not least, I want to talk about Ben Simmons again. Obviously, I'm biased and I have my opinions, but I think it's a worthwhile conversation about mental health and just discussing that as well. So any sports fans, Ben Simmons fans out there, if you don't know the story, it's a fascinating topic to talk about. Before we get to all of those great topics today on April 26, 2022, Mark, the most important question of every day, how are you feeling?
And if you're not a sports fan, that's when you can tune out because
I don't think, but this is one of those conversations. It's not going to be
I
about
agree.
sports.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm good. I show up here today, and as you know, we have a kind of a concert always going on next door.
Yes.
And they span the spectrum.
They do.
And the first song I heard today when I walked in was Bob Marley. It was my favorite Bob Marley song. Do you have a favorite Bob Marley song?
No, I don't think I have a favorite.
Three Little Birds is my favorite.
Okay.
And it's the first thing I heard. So how bad can your day be when you walk in and you hear like your favorite Bob Marley song?
Well, I can anybody be mad listening to a Bob Marley?
Even though it's raining outside, it looks nothing like a Bob Marley day because he is sunny and
But what's weird though is these are the days where I think you're kind of
where you
supposed to
need
listen to Bob Marley.
Is it? I don't know.
You don't think so?
Maybe. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's
Okay.
like it is outside, the sun is shining, you need your sunglasses and sunscreen and all that stuff, and Bob Marley's playing in the background. That's the way it is. And that is not how it is today.
Isn't it so funny how we view that differently?
That is interesting.
I always use like Bob, you put him on a rainy day because it brightens it up. I don't know. I get it. I get your point. Like there's nothing better than the sun on and a Marley song, and like I totally get it. I've always thought a Marley song really mattered on a rainy day like today.
Huh. Because I've never, like, when it's 80.
Yeah.
Like, that's when the first day when everyone's out walking and jogging and they're on their motorcycles, and that's when Marley should be playing. But that is interesting. It's interesting. All right, so what do we got first?
Well, hit us with the great debate here. You watched it last night.
Did.
I did not.
I did. This is what I thought.
Okay.
And these are one of the things that I think is interesting about it, is we so often try to look at the world from a different viewpoint. They only had an hour, and they were rigid on the time, much more rigid than the presidential debates we watch on TV. And there were 5 of them there, and they already know where they are in the rankings. So you could so clearly see the strategy of all of them. I don't even know who was. Oz and McCormick are 1, 2. I don't know who's second. There's a female, and if you watched last night, the black female is in 3rd place, the white female is in 5th place, and there was a guy in between who's in 4th place. Well, as it turned out, everyone's trying to make a statement. Everyone's trying to make a name for himself. The white female who's in last place decided, I don't know who she decided to go after. She ended up going after the other woman. Okay. And it seemed throughout for like the last half of it, it was just the 2 women bickering, which I don't think helped either of them at all. Okay. It was very clear that every time Dr. Oz took a breath, he was supposed to say the words "Trump endorsed me," because he said it about 700 times.
Sure.
And I thought, for people who actually watched it, I thought the person who did the best was the other guy, and Jeff Barros is his name?
Was it Bardos?
Bardos.
Yeah.
I thought he was the best of the 5, and I think he's in 4th. Like, he's a long shot. Okay. But just in watching it, I thought McCormick did. I watched an hour. Yep. I thought McCormick did better than Oz, but I don't think Oz was bad.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because I only saw one headline for the debate when I was flipping through the news and Twitter today. One headline. The only headline I saw was from the New York Times, and it said, McCormick and Oz don't spar off, but were attacked by other candidates. How true is that headline?
The
New York Times made it sound as if really McCormick and Oz never really went after each other.
It was it was what word am I looking for? Polite.
Okay.
Is probably not the right word. I will come up with one later. It was civil.
Okay.
But McCormick said that Oz has flip-flopped on every topic.
Yeah.
And he's rattling off, well, on your show in 2015 and in your show in 2012, and you've said this.
So he was prepped.
Yes. And did Oz call McCormick phony? Or it wasn't vicious, but they certainly weren't complimentary of each other.
Okay.
But you didn't walk away like disliking either of them.
So let's do this. I have up here are the 5 headlines from the debate last night from different things. So
Okay.
I'll read them to you and you can just 10-second
Yes or
clip,
no.
thumbs up, thumbs down. So here's wavy.com. Dr. Oz spars with GOP rivals in Pennsylvania Senate debate. Celebrity physician turned politician Mehmet Oz accused of flip-flopping against rivals for the first time Monday night. You're saying that was very, very
That
true.
was it.
Okay. Politico, Dr. Oz, this is the title of the article. Dr. Oz, quote, "We cannot move on from the 2020 election." Do you remember Oz saying that?
But one of the questions was, they ask everyone, you know, and that may be verbatim how they worded it.
Okay.
Is it time that we move on from the 2020 election? And the only one was Jeff, who said, he's like, Biden's our president.
Yeah.
And now we've got to focus on November.
Sure.
And, blah, blah, blah. But they all said no. I don't know why Oz is being picked out.
Okay.
But you can just tell that. And they didn't say no they didn't say it like we can't forget about it. We need to examine it because there are obviously holes in with the mail-in ballot. We need to make sure that that everyone who should be allowed to vote gets to vote, but we need to make sure they only vote once, and it needs to be streamlined. But they just said no.
You and I have talked about this before. I think Pennsylvania is one of the only states where, if you know the context that the person's talking from, no isn't necessarily like a wrong answer. So, for example, I believe Biden is the president of the United States. I do not believe that the election was rigged. However, I do think in the state of Pennsylvania, there were significant rule changes leading up to it that certainly promoted one side or helped another side. So I'm not implying the election was rigged. I do wonder how many of those candidates believe there's a difference between believing the election was rigged
and flawed.
Yes,
and I agree.
I wonder how many of these people think it was flawed versus rigged.
But it didn't come off that way.
Okay.
If they're like, we need to streamline it. We need to make sure that there aren't holes, because we've talked about this. There are people that got write-in ballots in states that they haven't lived in years. Like there were holes in this system, no doubt about it. But yeah, they all came out, and it was like it almost sounded like they were afraid to say, yeah, like it's over.
Yeah, no, I get it. NBC News, the title was GOP Rivals Pile on Dr. Oz During Forum for Pennsylvania Senate Candidates. Did you feel like he was the point of attack for the majority of the people up there?
No.
See, that's interesting, because that's how NBC News
just
is
McCormick. And I think NBC News is trying to get Dr. Oz in the headline.
Okay.
Because it makes the article more click-worthy.
GOP rivals pile on Dr. Oz during forum.
Because for at least the second half, the women went at each other, and to the point that the moderator had to tell the other, like one of the women, like, you need to stop talking. It's not your. Now, one of the things that they did bring out was how often the people lived in the Commonwealth, how long it has been since they moved away. And the one guy, like Jeff Bartos, is like, I'm here. I've been here. Well, when they talk about the pandemic, and he's like, he said McCormick was living with his family in Colorado. Yeah. And, and Dr. Oz was in New Jersey and all these things. And I was the only one well, not the only one. I think one of the women was, but that was one of the things. And that will be one of, if either McCormick or Oz gets the nomination, one of the things that the Democrats are surely going to pile on is they don't live here. Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. Very interesting. Any final thoughts before we move on?
No, that was about it. I like watching the strategy and to see. You could tell the lady in 5th place, who was the ambassador to Denmark, something. She knew she had to make waves, and she was strong, and she talked about how she could win in November, and the guy in 4th place, Jeff Bartos, talked about how he is basically the only through and through Pennsylvanian in the bunch. That all the other people are carpetbaggers to a degree, whether they were born there, where they can't, whatever. So, but I thought it was fun. It was fun, and it was an hour. It was in and out.
Yeah, no, that's
the post. What I miss is the post-debate breakdown. That, like, when they have presidential debates, I'm flipping. I'm on Fox. I'm on CNN. I want to hear what all sides think, and they don't have that as much. So that was disappointing.
Probably not. Let's do this one. You're excited to talk about this. First of all, how many times have you paid for a first date?
That's a good question. I don't even know. I don't even know how to answer that.
You don't think you've ever paid for a first date?
I don't know if I've ever been in a situation where, like, I don't know how to say that you ended up, that your, like, first real meeting was a date. Like, that there was always, like, a hangout. It always grew more organically than to be like, hey, I met this person, or hey, you should go out with my friend, and why don't you two just go to dinner for, like, I don't know if I've ever done that.
Do you ever remember having a conversation with your mom or your dad about, like, before you went out on a date, or like took someone to a dance or took one to the movies? Do you ever remember them specifically telling you should pay for the date?
I'm sure. And my parents would have been appalled if I did not.
What have you told your kids?
This is what I tell my kids. And I probably told you, I probably said this on the air.
Yes.
A first date should be like, go get ice cream, go for a walk.
Yes. But would you tell Jimmy to pay for the first date? Here's a better question. Would you have given Jimmy different advice
than my daughters?
Than your daughters?
Yeah, probably, because it is the whole double standard-ish. But I think it would, now that I'm, I say now that I'm an adult, it would have a lot more to do with, is the kid paying?
Okay.
Are the parents paying?
Okay.
Do I know the parents? How well off? If the parents belong to the country club, then their kid can pay. I'm not buying, if you're wealthy, my kid doesn't need to buy your kid a meal. But oftentimes it's like I would think that one parent would buy, and then the other would buy. But yes, I don't think the guy needs to buy necessarily, especially when they're young, because they're spending their parents' money, and the girl's parents may have way more money than the guy's parents.
Okay, so I sent this to you for two reasons. The first reason, the reason this is trending on Twitter, is a completely different conversation, which we'll have in a second. The second reason I sent this to you is I have done both. And this is my belief. Who asked who out? If you asked them out, I think you should pay, or at least offer to pay, for the first date. Regardless of your gender, regardless of the if it's, which relationship it is. Like, I don't care if it's male, male, female, female, male, female. Like, I don't care. Whoever asked who out should essentially, at the very least, be offering to pay for the first date. You asked them.
That's fair.
Out.
So you've had chicks ask you out on a first date?
Yeah.
You've
never had that before?
You're that much in demand.
I don't think I'm that much in demand, but I'm just saying, like, they had an event they had to go to, and they were like, do you want to go with me? And I'm thinking, like, yes. And then when I would go, like, they would pay for the event because they asked me to go with them. No? You've never
I'm trying to
that
think.
Situation.
I'm trying to think.
But see, to me, here's my, I guess, my downfall, because I try to, like, see both sides. Like, I'm very, like, sure of this. Like, I'm more shocked that it's not the norm of just whoever asked who out should obviously pay.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Like, I can tell you one that I can relate to. There was, back in my younger days, and I was broke, and She was not.
She
But
was not.
she had like a real job. And she was like, we were just kind of hanging out, and she said, why don't we ever like go out to dinner? And I was like, because I hate to go out to dinner.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I don't. And I was like, I was like, listen, if you ever want to go out to dinner, then you're gonna have to ask me, because if I'm asking you out to dinner, we're going through a drive-through at McDonald's.
We're getting hot dogs.
Exactly. Well, they don't have hot dogs at McDonald's,
Okay.
but yeah, that's the point.
Wait, they don't have hot dogs? Wait, when was this?
Hot dogs at McDonald's?
I was thinking like at Baltimore.
Oh yeah, this was in Baltimore.
Right, so
but
you have like
at the
hot dog stands like
at the ballpark, but yeah. But then yeah, so I remember one time we went to dinner and she paid, because she's like, I want to go, I'm paying, this is on me. But again, she had a real job, so she
Sure.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It was more just like, I maybe this is me. Like, formal dates are just overrated. Like, hey, there's a bar, let's go to the bar.
Okay.
I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
So that was more of a, yeah, but like the whole, like, let's go to dinner, let's go to the movie.
Well, yeah.
Like I would splurge for Blockbuster back in the day. Like, yeah, I'll go get the movie.
Very few of my first dates were like your typical movie, like
Yeah.
make the reservation, put on the slacks, and like in my lifetime, I'm trying to think, maybe did that once. Like, I don't think
I mean,
most of my first dates were happenstance, coincidence, or it was kind of like, hey, I'm going to this, like, I'm going to go watch my cousin play whatever. Do you want to go grab like an ice cream cone and go watch him like play baseball or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't ever, there wasn't like a,
well, this would be my
code.
guess, and I could ask my kids this. In the modern world, with texting, with Snapchat, with all that stuff, isn't like the first date dead? Haven't you had 100 conversations before you've ever gone anywhere?
That's a good question. So I guess, to your point, what is the point of the first date? Are you implying that you have most of the answers you would have?
You've already had these conversations, and then it becomes, hey, do you want to go get something to eat? It's not like a formal, like, what are you doing Saturday night? It's, hey, you want to go, do you want to go grab something?
So this was one of the things that I always did, and this is just my own like psyche, like this was kind of like to protect myself, is anytime I ask somebody on like to go somewhere for the first time or do something for the first date, I never made it a concrete thing. I almost always, no, what I did is I would be like, hey, going here with my buddies, do you want to meet me at such and such after? And would add like the no big deal either way, because my own psyche, I just needed to, like, if they're busy,
say
they
no,
say no,
soften the blow.
I'm with my friends, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't know. So
you're not a real concrete guy anyway.
No,
you don't do well with concrete.
I just don't. I think the first date, I think sometimes the idea of the first date is like, I hate using the word concrete again. There's this concept with the first date that it's like, we are going to go somewhere and we are going to be so interlocked in our bubble. And my focus is you and you are my focus. And for me, like, that's just not how I live. So why would to meet somebody on a first date that way isn't going to be anything like what we're going to do 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month after that. Like, everything I do, there's going to be other people involved, and we're hanging out with a group, and so like, rarely am I going to be sitting across from you at a fancy restaurant and having a conversation.
Well, that's why I said
that's just not life.
That part, the focus on you, is done through texting. You've already had that.
Ooh, interesting.
Because
so you're doing so many other things
while you're focused on her, and she's focused on your wallet, and are you actually picking up the bill?
But this is okay. I agree with you. You are certainly clearing questions that you would have asked on the first date. I totally agree with that. The difference, though, is like, if one of your daughters or Jimmy, I love how I only single out Jimmy on the show. If one of your daughters or Jimmy was texting somebody, their focus isn't primarily on them because they're flipping through apps, they're watching TV, they're doing whatever. It's that conversation is still a side part of what you are doing.
Yes. I mean, sometimes it's more intense than others, but I get
traditional
it.
first date, you are like locked in. Like that's kind of the point. Like in theory, that's kind of the point is like you sit down at this table, they're across from you, and like you are not surrounded by other things that you can bother yourself with.
I even wonder now that I'm even as older, because obviously as kids, it's, you know, the texting, the snapping, but even as an older person, if it's, you know, someone in their 20s is like, hey, I work with this person, you should meet him, kind of the whole blind date stuff. Wouldn't you just get their number and like, I can't imagine in the modern day and age, there would be a date that didn't have, I don't want to say hours of texting, but hours of texting.
Well, you know what's funny though is okay.
And then you've found out if you actually get along with the person well enough, and you don't have the first date if you don't.
But see, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole, and I don't know if I want to go down it. So you and I've talked about it before. Like I dated a lot. I've had a lot of like
failed relationships.
But see, this is the weird part though. In a weird way, like I found a lot of them successful too.
Right. Like just because it ended, it's like not a failure.
I had a good time. I met a lot of great people. Like I had good moments. There is an aspect to some of this though, the texting side of the first date, where you can text too long. Like sometimes,
without a doubt.
Sometimes you are better off, whether it's texting or like a dating app or a social media message. Like sometimes you are better off like, hey, I'm so-and-so, da-da-da, like I'm going to be in wherever, like if you're not busy, like come on down. Like sometimes that is the better play for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I have done that. Like I did that numerous times in my 20s where like I would skip the whole messaging phase because I was just like, hey, like maybe it was like, hey, I just don't want to do this again. Like I just don't feel like getting to know.
I don't like you enough to text you. If you want to show up, you can show up.
It's the opposite though. It's like,
no, I do. I get what you're saying. That was a joke.
Dude, date texting fatigue is way worse than dating fatigue. Date texting fatigue of having to be like, hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
Does your head bounce like that when you text?
I mean, like date texting fatigue is way worse. So there are times where like after a while, like you're just like, hey, I'm here. Come down if you want to like hang out or have a drink. Like you kind of skip through all of it because just the fatigue of it all, like you're over it. Like it's done.
No, that is interesting. So basically, to get back to the original point, you don't feel like the guy's obligated to pay for the first date.
I feel like who is asking who?
So it's totally 50-50. I get it. I'm with you.
This is pretty great. Definitely would never want to go on a first date with either of you. Chivalry isn't dead. I like the idea of a first date. Gives the other person undivided attention, which we kind of hinted at. Like I kind of said, the way the texting works now, you don't get that. Shows you care for them enough to give them that time and shows them that you can treat them well one-on-one. Can an ice cream cone and a walk not do the same thing though? Yeah. I feel like an ice cream cone and a walk can do the same thing.
Or like order pizza, watch a movie. But
see, that has more negative. That has a negative connotation to it now that it didn't used to have. Anything with watching a movie, like pizza and a movie, Netflix and chill.
Yeah,
like, that has a much more negative.
I know what you mean.
Connotation.
I don't know, negative. It's just different.
No. If you're somebody that's trying to actually date and like not, it can.
I mean, I get it. I do get the connotation. The language has changed. I don't know if chivalry's dead. I think there's an aspect of chivalry, but I think there's also an aspect of.
I think the ocean has never been bigger, and I think chivalry gets crossed in that. I think it's really easy to be chivalrous when you live in a town of 1,000 people and there's only so many eligible people and now you have to court to them. But the ocean is so large now for guys and for girls, like it does make chivalry feel put off to the side. Like, oh, like if you don't want to put up with this, like there's like, I'll just go here or I'll text this person or I'll message. Just like you can just reach out to anybody at any point.
Yeah, I mean, I think too that because society's changed, because women have changed so much from the standpoint, and you can't relate to this as much as I do, but when you look at just even girls' sports from where they were when I was a kid, like when I was in high school, there was no girls' soccer. Mm-hmm. And when I was in high school, they brought back girls softball. Like all these things that now kids can't imagine. What do you mean there was no girls soccer team? There wasn't one. So like we've empowered girls and women. I know I've talked about this on the air, that when I was a kid growing up, the tops of every academic class were guys. And there would be a girl sprinkled here and there, but it would be very common. In my brother's graduating class, the top 3 were guys. In my graduating class, the top 3 were guys. Now in my kids' graduating class, the top 3 are either all girls or 2 out of 3.
So where are you relating that to the first
Because
thing?
I think nowadays girls they're not brought up in a world anymore where it's like you're supposed to be taken care of. You can be independent. You should be independent. You can take care of yourself. And it's very equal-ish. So I think the dating world is the same way. It's not like the guy has to ask the girl out. The guy has to pay. The guy, it's much more even.
I see what
so
you're saying.
it's just different. So when you say like chivalry's dead, like there's an aspect where like I think like the girl that you're supposed to open the car door for the girl. In 1940, you were.
See, to me,
I think nowadays the girls are like, I can open my own damn door, and if you open it for me, you're being insulting.
I think people got. So I think sometimes people get chivalry confused with courtship, and I think the lack of courtship now, because again, it's just so vast. You can meet somebody from anywhere, and you can connect with them, and you can message them. To get a phone number was a big deal, even when I was in high school.
Big deal.
Now, like you don't even.
You like apples?
You wouldn't even.
I got her number. How you like them apples?
Now you don't even have to get their number. Like you just find them on social media and you send them a message, and it's like. So I do think like the idea of courtship and the idea that maybe like the chase is not as valuable as it used to be. I do think there's a faction of people that view that as chivalry being dead. And I don't think so. I think courtship is just more lax.
It's different
than what it used to be. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of assholes out there. Am I allowed to say that? There's a lot of jerks that probably aren't very chivalrous. The FCC going to shut us down?
I don't know.
I felt like Eminem there for a second.
Was
that good?
It's the only time you've ever felt like Eminem.
The only time I ever felt that. But I do think there's a difference.
You know when you don't
chivalry.
feel like Eminem? When you go to the bank.
No. But I think chivalry and courtship are 2 separate things, and I think for a long time they were linked.
No, I'm with you.
Courtship and the chase equaled chivalry, and now that like not everyone's chasing anymore, boys and girls, like the chase kind of isn't as intense as it used to be. The dating pool is larger. There's more ways to connect.
What I think we learned, and this goes by way of what were those schools where the girls learned how to set the table.
Etiquette?
Yes. Those schools, and that's not, I want to say grooming schools, but that's not it. Someone, if anyone's still listening, they'll know. But yeah, I think I hope that in society we've gotten past how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to be treated, and to the point of like, do we have similar interests? Do we get along? Do we see the world the same way?
Sure.
Because that's a lot more important than, does the guy open the door for you, and does she have dinner on the table when you get home?
The reason this is trending, because we didn't get to that part, real quick before we switch topics to Ben Simmons, because I want to talk about Ben Simmons today. The reason this is trending, a divorce attorney made a comment explaining why men should always pay on the first date. Quote, men should always pay on the first date for our own good. It's going to work out for you better in court. The societal standard that men are the provider are always going to help men in court. And that was
court.
Yes, in legal procedure.
So it's a legal strategy. You should pay for the first date because when you get divorced, it will help you.
Not so much when you get divorced, it will help you, but I think it's the idea that, like, I don't want to say ownership, but it's the idea that, like, the man is the provider and thus these things must be his. Because how else could you? That was kind of
I'm not sure I go that.
That's what the divorce attorney said.
See, and I would get to the point, well, first date, like, and here's the thing, depending on where you're going, like, it can't be that big of a deal. Like, I bought you lunch today. We're not dating.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I just paid for it because,
yeah.
like, next time I'll have money show up in my Venmo account.
I don't think he's referring to the bill. He's referring to the societal standard. Like, you're never going to pull the bill out and be like, well, I paid for the first date, so did I. He's saying the societal standard that men are the providers. And some of the things that lead people to thinking that is the idea that they will pay for the first date, right? Like, women and children are in the lifeboats first. Like, there are these societal standards that men, quote unquote, live by that help them in the court of law. And thus, if we get rid of those societal standards, it will be harder for men in the court of law. That's what this divorce attorney was saying.
And I could see that. I just think that
because to me, it sounded like you were saying, like, you don't think they're like, what, some bill from the first date?
Well, yeah, that's right.
And I agree with you on that.
I just think that because society's changed and because society's so empowered women, that it depends on the woman. And there are some women who still want to be coddled and still want to be taken care of. And then there are others who are like, I'll do it myself. And like, so I think it just depends.
Those schools were called finishing schools.
That's it.
Thank you to whoever.
There you go. So yeah, I think it more depends on the woman than the guy. That's what I think.
Interesting. Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I want two quick stories before we get there. There's a thing on Facebook. This is 45 seconds. There's a picture of Janet Jackson coming out of a oh my gosh, what they call a swap shop or whatever. She's in London. What's it called? Pawnbroker. She came out of a pawn, and they have a picture of her. And like, why is Janet? She's worth however many millions. She's coming out of a pawnbroker shop.
Okay.
But then they said there was a bag in there that's for like $38,000. I guess it's like the hoity-toity of pawnbrokers. Okay. But could you, like, that would be an interesting show. Where do famous people shop when they can get away with it?
Right.
Because she just looks like a normal chick. She's got her hair in a thing and glasses on. And now when you see the picture, you can see it. But could you imagine, like, of all places to be in a pawn shop and you're like, are you Janet Jackson?
Yeah,
that would be a fascinating story. Okay, yeah, go to the other one because I'll save the other one for the end.
Yeah, we have afterthoughts.
Yes, I'll get back to that. I wanted to get that in because that was 30 seconds and I saw it. I didn't want to forget.
I would, we're going to let you have the afterthoughts here. Ben Simmons, for those who don't know, he is a basketball player for the Brooklyn Nets. He was traded from the Philadelphia 76ers. He has not played in the basketball game for almost 10 months.
Let me put this in real world. Most people know him because he's dating.
Well, he was
dating
one of the Jenners. I believe it was Kendall.
Okay, I didn't know which one, but yes.
He was dating a Kardashian.
They're not together anymore?
No.
Because the other one's dating the dude from the Suns, right?
Correct.
And why is he's hurt? Why is his name escaping me?
Devin Booker.
Devin Booker, yes. Okay.
Okay.
But that was the other sister.
No, Devin Booker took Ben Simmons.
Oh, same girl.
I believe.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So anyway, that's how a lot of people.
I'm pretty sure it's the same girl without looking it up.
My ex-wife only knew Lamar Odom from the Kardashians. So she was a Laker fan because she loved Lamar. He was her favorite person on the Kardashians.
Oh,
yes. My wife thought he was a blast.
That's great. So Ben Simmons, he has not played in 10 months. He just recently filed. He's trying to get $20 million from the NBA players. I believe it's the NBA Players Union is who he's filing it through in order to get his paycheck for this year, even though he has not played a single game. He has refused to play. He showed up to practices with like a cell phone in his pocket. He gave almost no effort at all. He demanded a trade. He finally got a trade. He went to the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are now, the quote is, exasperated by Ben Simmons and having to deal with him. There was a report coming out that he might play in Game 4 I think it was last night.
It was last night.
He did not play. Not only did he not play, he did not even go to the game. The irony to that is the 3 games before last night, he showed up in the most elaborate outfits and stood out more than anybody else in the arena. And all of this is based off of, he has some physical health issues that they're claiming, whether or not, no one's seen him actually play, so no one knows. He's claiming he has back soreness. I don't know what to think of it.
It's hard to debate.
And
my back hurts. No, it doesn't. How can you tell?
How can you tell?
It's like saying I have a headache.
And then he is claiming mental health before he was going through this. I find the whole conversation fascinating. There is a little bit of tabooness right now around talking about mental health. Remember, we had a lot of conversations about the Chappelle special and what just happened with Leah Thomas. And I said to you, I think one of the best things that's going to come out of this is you can have open discussions about LGBTQ community and how and what should we do and how should this be handled, all this stuff. I'm hoping the same thing is about to happen with mental health issues, because early on, you couldn't call out Ben Simmons for mental health issues. I truly believe he needs to be called out for it, because I think he's doing a disservice to anybody who actually has mental health issues.
Amen.
There you go. So this is, and one of the things I said to you yesterday, this is one of those scenarios where anybody who was a Sixers fan, anybody who's a basketball fan will, I think, relate to this. I think there's a difference between having issues and needing help. You can be somebody who's,
because we all have issues.
Yes, but even more so, like, you can be somebody that's lost. You can, like, there are moments in all of our lives where we have a down week. Something happens in our life and we're not sure how to handle it. Like, we all have moments where we need help. And then there is mental health, where it's chronic and it is something almost beyond your control. You can. And here's the thing with Ben Simmons and what his camp needs to realize: he needs help. In your medical opinion. Yes, in my undoctored medical opinion. But there's a difference between having mental health issues and being spoiled. There's a difference between having mental health issues and then, like, having all the money you need and deciding you no longer should have to work for it. Like, all the things around Ben Simmons, these are not mental health issues. These are, he needs help because he does not know how to handle himself.
Well, I think,
they're
how
two
old is he?
Completely different things.
25?
Probably 25, maybe a little older now. He's been in the league for, I think, 7 years.
I think that he's been so talented. And he
turned 25 in July.
Okay, so he'll be 26 here in a couple months. He's been so talented his whole life, and he's been so coddled, and he's been so successful. And he got to last year in the playoffs, he was a disaster. And he was publicly, as a guy who was 24 at the time, almost 25 at the time, was publicly ridiculed for the first time in his life. And now he turns around, and it's a difference of, like, just saying he played poorly. Like when LeBron played poorly in the finals, he was a great player, just played poorly. Like, they're like, he doesn't shoot, he can't shoot, he's a and you just can't wake up and say, oh, now I'm a great shooter. So I think there's this, for the first time in life, he has a confidence problem. And the one place in the world that he could go and be beloved, now he was going and being berated. And now he had pressure. And now there were not only chinks in the armor, there were holes. And that's the aspect that I think and again, I don't know him, there are a lot of questions as to why would a guy show up and in a bright red suit instead of a black and just blend in.
For 30 seconds, can I just tell?
Absolutely.
Like, this is, he has claimed mental health issues, and I think there was a point in time at the beginning of this, like 10 months ago, I was willing to give it a chance because I was like, okay, like he kind of played like somebody who could have mental health issues. He was kind of quiet, reserved for the most part. And it was very clear he wasn't enjoying himself. So there was a point in time where I was like, okay, like this could be mental health. And then as time went on, you began to notice, like in closed spaces, he talks and he acts as if the world is fine. Like he would tell reporters, like, take a video of me making this dunk. And he'd be like, share it so everyone can see it. And it's like, what's your point? The first 3 games of this series, the Brooklyn Nets wear black everything. They're black from head to toe, their unis, their warm-ups, everything. So when he comes out and sits down and he has on like chromatic, like red and orange and lime green, and like, I mean, he's the only person you see when you look over at the bench. And my struggle is, as someone who's not a doctor, my struggle is, if you have mental health issues and you are struggling with anxiety and the pressure and the weight of being Ben Simmons, If I know my whole team's wearing black, I'm probably not going to wear the brightest possible outfit that I can possibly wear and then go parade around the team and shoot during warmups and dunk it during halftime and do all of these antics in the brightest outfit on the team. I can't balance the two, and it just makes no sense.
Because I think he loves the attention. He still wants the attention. He's the rock star that said, "This is my last tour and I'm retiring," and then he got there. I just watched Rocky 3 last night. Part of it while I was riding the exercise bike. And when Apollo comes back and Rocky's like, "Why are you doing it?" He goes, "Because it's too quiet." And I think that there's this aspect that it's too loud while you're on stage, but then when you get off stage, it becomes quiet. And if you've loved the stage, so part of him still needs the attention. That's why he's telling reporters, "Watch me dunk this because I need you to see how great I am." But I'm afraid to go back on the court and play. Because last time I played, not only was I not great, I was bad.
Yeah.
And we lost. And I'm making all this money. And now people are all over me. Because if you're the 8th player on the team and you play badly in the postseason, it's not. But when you're the highest paid player, the second highest paid player, and you're supposed to be this wonderkin and you suck, now all of a sudden there's pressure because you can't suck too many times in a row.
Yeah. There was a really good article for anybody who's more interested on this. There was a really good article, and it was titled "Ben Simmons Keeps Missing All the Shots He's Not Taking." And the article went into detail about every time Ben Simmons has essentially quit on a team. He quit on the Australian national team when he was a teenager. He then went on to LSU where he almost didn't finish out the season. They had to convince him several times. And then as soon as the season was over, he did not finish out the semester at LSU.
Well, in his fairness, lots of guys do that.
What's that?
When they know they're going to get drafted in football or basketball.
But time out. But those guys also, they lead their teams to March Madness. They try to win a national title. Like Ben Simmons basically showed up to LSU and barely played. It was pathetic, what he did at LSU.
No,
I get it.
Do
you remember the Ben Simmons
there are
LSU experience?
There are lots of big time, we'll take football players.
Yes, but they're trying. The people
on the field, but they don't go to class.
I understand that, but the people you're describing are trying.
No, I get that. But when you said he didn't finish school, there are lots of athletes that don't finish school.
But they buy into the program.
No, I get that. They play hard.
They
play hard. I'll give you that.
Ben Simmons at LSU did not do that. It goes on to say he has committed to the Australian national team 4 different times since he was a teenager, and all 4 times he has pulled out within a month of starting.
No,
and now you look at what happened with the Sixers, and now you look at what just happened with the Nets, and saying he was going to come back and play, and then he didn't, and then the playoffs start, and he didn't, and then he says he's going to be ready for Game 4, and then he didn't. It is this piece does a really good job of showing somebody who essentially keeps getting paid to never show up and do what he's supposed to.
And I'll say that when you're talking about people who need to create, and I'm not going to say I don't think actors fit into this, but when you're talking about athletes and rock stars who have to do it new over and over and over. There's a difference between the people who want to win or who want to write more good songs, as opposed to the people who love what winning has brought them and they love all the periphery. And Jordan is one of the famous ones. Tiger Woods is one of they were so obsessed with winning, which is what separated them. But the difference, they were the best. So they're probably bad examples because Jordan was the best and Tiger was the best.
I'm really upset that we even mentioned Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods in a Ben Simmons
conversation. But you'll get there are lots of guys who the difference between an all-star player and a guy who could have been an all-star but wasn't is how focused am I on winning or how focused am I on being cool in off the court or off the field or off stage. And those are the different, and you could just tell by Ben Simmons, when he wakes up, he does not burn to win. That's why not just Michael Jordan, but Larry Bird, but there's lots of other guys that, they have all these things. Being a star athlete brings you all these things, but their number one goal is I need to win. And then I'll do that. I'll go to the red carpet here. I'll go to the but I need to win.
But those, I guess, yes. And everything
he obviously doesn't have it.
But see, it goes a step. I would argue it goes further than that, because a lot of the people that you just described, they still showed up to work. Like they still showed up and they still played, and they didn't expect to get their $20 million payday after literally avoiding every possible way to play the game of basketball.
I agree. I'm with you.
That's the difference. So while I agree with you, this is in even a land of its own. Like there's
no, I'm with you. I am with you. For him to come back and say I should get paid still, yeah.
Thinking, I wish you could give him truth serum and just say, like, do you really believe this is your $20 million? Like, do you actually believe you fulfilled a contract and that this $20 million belongs to you? I would love to hear his response to that, his answer to that.
Yeah, who knows? Is he a bright guy?
You know what? I would assume he is. Like, this sounds dumb. Sometimes you watch people do something or play something, and you just, like, there's no way they're dumb. Like, when you watch Ben Simmons and you watch the way he passes and the things he does, there's no way he's not a bright guy. There's no way. Because there's just reactionary and reads, and there's things a vision that you have to do the things Ben Simmons does. There has to be. Do you think there's a dumb the worst NFL quarterback, do you think he's dumb?
Quarterback is different.
Being a point guard in the NBA, not much different.
I think it's a lot of reaction.
You don't think, you're saying you think the NBA is the reaction. Yes, but isn't that kind of like, you can't be dumb and react. Like you gotta have.
I'll tell you this.
Your neurons gotta be firing upstairs to do that.
I was talking to a Major League Baseball coach one day who had coached with a guy who was a great hitter who fascinated me, and I won't mention any names because, but the hitter was not known to be a genius, but he was a great hitter.
Tony Gwynn.
No, I think Tony Gwynn is a smart guy. But I said, does he understand hitting, or does he just see ball, hit ball, and he's so good that he just can do it? And the coach said to me, he goes, I think he really, really understands it, but I'll bet he couldn't explain it to anyone.
Sure.
So does that make him like a little bit of a genius savant and still be an idiot? Yeah, maybe. I think there are some athletes who are just really, really good at what they do, and outside of the world, like one who doesn't pass away, no one would ever accuse Allen Iverson of being brilliant.
But see, this is where you and I struggle with this, because this goes like kind of a little bit with like spelling's really critical to you. Like,
and Iverson's my favorite player.
So I'm just saying though, you expressing it and being able to do it correctly is a measurement of intelligence. You really care about that. Like to you, the way you express yourself and how well you're able to do it, like theoretically, grammatically, like in a chronological order, like that really matters to you. To you, that is like the peak of intelligence.
I just don't think anyone think Allen Iverson's a genius.
Not at all. You don't think Allen
Iverson's...
You? Here, okay, but it goes back. I think intelligence is when you see things other people can't see. Like, so for example,
I think physically he could do things that nobody else could do.
But I also think he saw things that you and I could never comprehend. When you're that size and you understand how much space you need to get a shot off and how to get it and how to angle your body and how to do those things, you are seeing things and doing things that just other people, they're not even on the same wavelength as you. You don't think so.
You think Allen Iverson's smarter than most everybody else?
I think there are ways that Allen Iverson is smarter than other people, without a doubt. I think
he's more physically talented.
That's it. You just think he's more physically gifted.
Because he's more physically
talented. You think a 6-foot kid from Newport is just physically more talented.
He was.
But see, if that were the case, then like there's 6'8" people walking around this planet that could never do what some of these other ones are doing.
Because they're not as physically talented.
I disagree. They're just as physically talented. They just don't see what these other guys are seeing.
No, I disagree.
So you don't think there's people in the world.
There are 1,000 6-foot kids from Newport.
You don't think there's people in the world that are just seeing things, and even though they can't express it to you. I've had, like, you and I've talked about this with autism. I've absolutely in autism, there are things that people are seeing that you and I can't even comprehend. Now, they can't express it to you. Like an autistic person might not be able to actually verbally,
I know what you're saying.
but I'm telling you, they are doing things and seeing things that you and I can't even begin to comprehend. So all I'm saying is I think athletes are very similar. I think there are athletes around, and I think Ben Simmons is one of them, that they just see things. And like, for example, I don't think Steve Nash is necessarily smarter than other point guards because Steve Nash can verbally express what he wants to say. If there's players that see what Steve Nash sees, they're just as intelligent. They're seeing things that other people don't see, and they're doing it in real time. Whether or not you can express that to me is a different kind of intelligence. It
magnifies the intelligence. Whether you can do it,
I don't know if it magnifies.
You don't think there's rock stars who can play guitar all night and are below average of intelligence?
Say that one more time.
You don't think there are great musicians who are good at what they do, who can play guitar or who can play drums or who can sing, but outside of that are below average of intelligence?
But see, again, I come back to the idea of like your idea of intelligence. That's what I'm saying to you. I think that's the part of this that you're missing.
I think in the grand scope. I think we all have things we're good at.
Yes. That's but some of that is intelligence. Like
you
have to know, okay, but it
doesn't mean that
in order to know how to do some of this stuff, you and I don't see it. Like you just can't.
No, I get it. But I'm saying if you take 10 people in a room and this person's really good at this and this person's really good at this, and you go around and pick out what everyone's really good at. And they all have different aptitudes of intelligence. But also at the end of the day, they're not all equally smart. And you could say this person's the smartest person in the room and this person's close and this person's the dumbest. And you go all around the spec. But the dumbest person in the room is still really good at something, and the smartest person in the room still sucks at lots of things.
But the smartest and the dumbest are in the context in which you are providing. Because, for example, if we're all starving and we got to plant food, the smartest person changes really quickly.
Amen.
Okay, so the point I'm making is your room you just made
and the person who can go shoot the food is even smarter than the person who can grow it.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is your imaginary room you just made up, you're providing the context of it. So right now in your mind, you believe the ability to verbally and written and all those things to express it really matters to you. But when like crap hits the fan, at that point, it doesn't really matter.
Well, but you're taking it to a narrow. You're like in one simple, when we're starving and we need food. I'm talking in the grand scheme of the world.
Yes. So to bring it all full circle, you asked me if I think Ben Simmons is intelligent. And my answer to you was, I think he sees things on a basketball court that very few people can see. So I find it hard to believe that he's dumb. I would never classify Ben Simmons as dumb. Without even having to hear him speak, without even seeing him read, without him doing any of those things, just watching him play the game of basketball and watching and seeing how he sees things and pulls things off, there's no way he's not an intelligent person.
And listen, and the reason I asked that, to get back to the original point, is with all these eccentric people, I guess would be a fair word. Like there are, when we talk about mental illness, whether they're mental illness or they just don't get it. And there's some statistic about chess grand champions who lose their mind because they're
so in deep.
Yes, the artists who are the tortured artists of all these things, that they're just, their mind is so that they
Kanye.
Maybe. Yeah, I would. So then are they like kind of so smart that they are struggling, or are they not really that smart and just don't get it?
There is a part here, because again, I don't, total opinion, I don't think Ben Simmons struggles from mental health issues. Do I think that there is a part of this where Ben Simmons goes, I know how to play basketball. Look at these passes I make. Look, I was almost defensive player of the year, like da-da-da. And he looks out at all these fans that are going, he can't shoot. And do I think there's a part of Ben Simmons that's looking at this and going to himself like, what, you guys don't know how hard this is, or you guys don't. But the point that what I would say though is like, that's not mental health, and thus him and his camp need to quit acting as if he has. I know.
Well, but they can't come out and say he has a confidence problem, because that doesn't work.
But it's got to be better than what they're selling right now. Because anybody who suffers with real mental health issues, whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever it is, he is doing them a disservice. And here's the other issue. He's also selling every other player short because this is going to hurt them at the collective bargaining agreement that you and I talked about. Like
he's just looking out for himself. No doubt about it.
He's ruining this for the collective group of players that are currently playing right now.
Correct. But they're trying to protect his image, and it's easier. Like
they're doing a really bad job.
Maybe when a player goes out and plays poorly, it's easier to say he was hurt than it is for him to say he was 100% healthy and he sucked. Because there's always that, well, he would have been good, but it's not his fault, but. And where if they just turn around and say he just can't shoot, then all of a sudden he has no one to blame but himself. And he obviously is not in a position where he's going to blame himself. So he has to blame something else. And again, mental health, you can't diagnose it. I take that back. It's like a headache. You know, who's going to say you don't have mental health issues? So
I'm willing to go out on a limb right now and say Ben Simmons does not have mental health.
Well, but that's your guess. You're guessing, but yes, and I get it.
But I feel I get chastised for saying it.
Well, you're not the only one guessing that.
I have no issue with saying
you're not the only one guessing that, but it is. I think it has a lot to do with a young star who's been coddled and praised his whole life, and he's dealing with failure on a huge stage.
And he needs help, and I hope he gets it. But that's not mental health.
Agree.
Those are not. It's two completely different things.
Agree.
I've had friends, I've had family members, I've had players, I have had a lot of people in my life that I'm very willing to say, you know what, they need help right now. But I've never once used that as an excuse to say they have mental health issues if I didn't think they actually had them. Because you can need help but not have mental health issues, and that is Ben Simmons right now.
But it takes a lot of. I mean, there are people, normal schmucks like us, who can't admit when they're wrong, who don't apologize, who every time they bring into it, well, that's because you're not wrong very often, but you don't get a lot of practice at it.
Right.
But it doesn't surprise me that there is an aspect of great athletes who can't admit that they're just not very. I don't say not very good because that's not fair. Because as you said, he's a great passer, he's a great defender, but he's a horrible shooter. And I feel like I would beat him in a game of horse today.
Because he just want to shoot it, though.
Because he would refuse to shoot.
If he would shoot it, he might kick your butt. We don't know.
10-foot bank shot. I'm not shooting it. All right, there's an H.
He might kick your butt if he actually decided to shoot it. That's the thing about it.
That's interesting.
Afterthoughts.
I have a good one. I want to save it till tomorrow.
Oh, you're going to save it for tomorrow?
I want to save. Yes,
okay.
I have two little nuggets that I want to save till tomorrow, and I have them written down here just because they're one of them's deeper and more interesting.
Yeah.
And one of them's just funny.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's funny.
All right.
And you will too. You will enjoy my story.
Probably.
And you'll be able to relate. It's about a celebrity, but it's a celebrity story that we'll all laugh at and we all can relate to in a different. And it will show us a life hack, which maybe you already know because you're more life hackish than me. Maybe. But yes. So we have that for tomorrow.
Okay. Sweet.
There's my teaser.
No, that was good. Way to sell it. Thanks for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
I have one more question before you go. Are the Sixers done?
If I had to make a bet right now, I would take the favorable odds for Toronto. I think Philly's probably still favored.
I'm sure they are.
I like winning 4 games in a row is just hard. It is. So I think
was it 3-0?
Yeah. It was 3-0. Now it's 3-2.
No one's ever come back from 3-0.
No one's ever come back from 3-0.
Not in basketball.
Not in basketball. The next game is in Toronto. So Matisse Thybulle, Philly's best defender, cannot play.
Why?
In Toronto. He's not vaccinated.
Oh, okay.
So he cannot travel. As of right now, he cannot travel to Toronto.
Okay.
So Philly's losing 2 in a row. Joel Embiid has a hurt thumb. Matisse Thybulle can't play. And Toronto's feeling really good about themselves. And this is the other part, because I said this real quick.
Any chance Embiid doesn't play Game 6?
No, he'll play. Because they said the thumb rest isn't going to cure it. They already said he's gonna, as soon as they're done, he is getting surgery on.
So there's no, it's damaged.
Philly's already come out and said that.
Rest won't help.
Okay. This is the part that I said to you. I said game 3 is always interesting. You said you felt it was interesting because like they get to go home and they feel good about themselves. And I said to you, game 3 is always interesting because all the teams that are down 2-0 unload the clip. They empty the barrel. Yes. They try anything and everything because why not?
What do you have to lose?
And when you watch Toronto play right now, and Nick Nurse is a very good coach, when you watch Toronto play right now, they are unloading the clip. They are doing matchups you never would have imagined. They're switching stuff. They're running like they ran a play the other day, all 5 guys on the same side of the floor. That was ingenious that nobody else in the league would have ran. But if you're Toronto, like you're down 2-0, like this is let's go. Like we're unloading it.
How many people in round 2 of the playoffs are running that play?
I bet you a team or two will do it. It's all
if they have the personnel.
It's all copycat, and it's all the other thing too is if they lose, the next team will run it against Philly because it worked against Philly. Right. So it depends if Philly wins or not too, and how much you see it. But yeah, the neat thing about the basketball playoffs. I know a lot of people don't like the NBA and it's boring and like they don't.
Playoffs are fun.
They don't play defense. But if you like basketball, the NBA playoffs, because by game 4, 5, 6. It's all a chess match, and it's just who's doing what.
I just had this argument with people too, because it's like people debate college football, pro football. People, especially around here, college basketball is so much better than the NBA. And I just had a guy say to me the other day how they don't play defense. I was like, then you don't watch the playoffs.
Yeah,
that what you watch on Christmas Day and in January is just kind of like, but they play hard now.
One of my favorite people in the world is the guy who loves the NFL. Because it's a chess match and they're the defense and I go, okay, but imagine now if that NFL team had to play a 7-game series, and imagine that chess match by game 6. That's the NBA playoffs. Like by game 6, you are seeing teams do stuff that you're like, oh my god, like they did this because, and it's like, and the dots that these guys are connecting, and not only that, like on the fly, these players are doing it. Like they are executing this stuff. It's not like they get huddle up and go, okay, remember this time we're going to. It is like rebound, transition, and they are remembering all of these things on the fly. And it is playoff basketball is incredible.
It's fun. Playoff basketball is really fun.
Yes, it is.
I was going to say my last thing. I think I said this last week. The Mets don't suck.
No, they can't.
The Mets are every offseason. This is going to be the Mets year. They went out and signed this guy. They went out and signed this guy. The Mets do not suck this year. They're going to be in it for unless another pandemic sweeps through Queens. Like they're going to be there all year.
Interesting.
I'll
keep an eye on it.
They are good. But you won your World Series. What do you care? You're just going to gloat all year. You can share it. You can let somebody else win it.
We'll see. I think that division's really interesting because I think a lot of people think Atlanta was a fluke last year. And I just think like if Acuna's back and he's in a rhythm and he's actually Acuna, like they're just as good, if not better,
they're pretty good
last year. And so that division's very
they didn't win a game till July last year. So April doesn't matter to them.
They were in June, they were dead in the water.
They don't care. They don't care until it gets really, really hot.
Yes.
All right, that's all we got.
All right. Thank you guys for watching Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will be back mañana.
See ya.